Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. The Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan follows a group of demigods as they seek to defeat the goddess Gaia from taking over the world. So yeah, that's a very brief plot summary, yeah guys. There's definitely way more that goes on in this series. I mean, for crying out loud, it is 5 books. There's a lot more that goes on. But yeah, that's kind of essentially the basic synopsis, if you will. We are introduced to a bunch of various different demigods. Yeah, the big core mission in this series is that they have to defeat the goddess Gaia, who is essentially the Earth Mother, if you will. And yeah, she just plans on taking over. She's been asleep for a very long time. And yeah, one of the biggest things with this series is uniting the worlds of both the Greek gods and the Roman gods, and the children of those Greek and Roman gods. So yeah, some very fascinating things. But before I do head into this review, before I forget, no spoilers. I do not plan on having any type of spoilers in this video. This is just going to be my overall general thoughts and whether or not you should read the series. So yeah, Rick Riordan. As we know, Rick Riordan, he has mostly just wrote middle grade fiction, and he's focused a lot on mythology. With the Percy Jackson series, you had Greek mythology with the Kane Chronicles, Egyptian mythology. There's also the Magnus Chase series, which I have yet to get to, but I'm dying to. That is Norse mythology. And yeah, with Heroes of Olympus, it's kind of this uniting of both Greek and Roman, and the return of many of your favorite lovable characters from the world of Percy Jackson. So yeah, this series, the core group of characters are these 7 demigods. And Rick Riordan, just to kind of go through each book very quickly, like I said, no spoilers, but just kind of going through very quickly. With the very first book, The Lost Hero, you are introduced to a young man named Jason. He wakes up, he has no memories. What's been going on? Where are his memories? Who is he technically? What's up? So yeah, he has this journey to Camp Half-Blood. If you've read the Percy Jackson series, Camp Half-Blood is the camp for the Greek gods, the descendants of the Greek gods, their children. So yeah, you're introduced in this book to characters like Jason, Leo, and Piper. And the brilliant thing about what Rick Riordan does with this series, he doesn't give you all of your main characters in one go. Like I just mentioned a little while ago, this series primarily functions on 7 major characters. So with the first book, you're introduced for the first 3, like I said, Jason, Piper, and Leo. You're introduced to the first 3 characters. Rick Riordan, he gives them a quest to go on together in this book, and you're given that time to get to know the 3 of them as people, as characters, and their relationships with one another. So then, yeah, you move on to book 2 in the series, the Son of Neptune, and you're introduced to some more characters, including Percy Jackson, you guys. The one complaint I had about this second book is that book 2 and book 1, they're kind of practically the same book, because in the first book, Jason wakes up, he has no memory. The second book, Percy Jackson wakes up, he has no memory. So yeah, the plot and the quests are almost kind of the same in some ways. And yeah, in book 2, you're introduced, not only reintroduced to Percy Jackson, but you're also introduced to 2 new characters who come from Camp Jupiter, which is the Roman equivalent of Camp Half-Blood. And those characters are Hazel and Frank. And Hazel and Frank definitely have some inner demons they're struggling with, some interesting backstories that are very fascinating. I loved Hazel especially, you guys, and kind of the mysteries that evolve from there. So yeah, very much like book 1, the 3 of them, they're given this task to go on and whatnot. So yeah, you move on to book 3, which is The Mark of Athena. This is a huge one. With book 3, books 1 and 2 finally collide, and book 3 is where the big arc finally comes into play with this series. What the big obstacle is, what the big mission is, how these worlds of Camp Jupiter and Camp Half-Blood, Greek and Roman, how they come together. And yeah, the rivalry there, and the fact that both of these worlds have kind of been hidden from each other, that they've kind of not really known they've existed and whatnot. So yeah, this is where, because there's this whole thing called the Prophecy of Seven that is introduced, and that a group of 7 demigods have to unite to fight back against the goddess Gaia. So yeah, you also get Annabeth, who was from Percy Jackson. Annabeth gets to pop up and make a bigger appearance. So yeah, that makes the group of 7, right? You have Annabeth, Percy, Frank, Hazel, Jason, Piper, Leo. So yeah, I really like that. This book definitely is an exploration of how these 7 characters come together, and now their relationships with one another, because things are a bit tense. You know, things are a bit tense at first, but how they ultimately become friends and how they work with each other. You know, that it's better to be united than opposing each other, you know. You move on from that, you get to the amazingly epic House of Hades. Yeah, guys, there's not really much I can say about this book, because there's some really crazy spoilers. But yeah, House of Hades is, it might be, it might be the highlight of the series. I've kind of heard a lot of people say that this is their favorite in the series. It might be mine too. I think this book definitely pulls a lot of the emotional weight of the series. And it does suffer a little bit that it is the penultimate book. It almost feels like a bit of fluff at times, because there's some obstacles that are thrown at these characters that's kind of like, oh Jesus, did this have to get thrown in the way now, you know? So yeah, this book does almost suffer a little bit from being the penultimate book, and that it almost seems like it's not entirely necessary, but still, weirdly enough, it's kind of one of the best books in the series. And then yeah, the last book being The Blood of Olympus, where the characters, it's life or death now. There's bigger things at stake. The world as it is at stake. Their camps are at stake. What's going to happen? Like I said, life and death situations. Things are very intense and very serious. And Rick Riordan always does that best, you know, because I've only read 2 of his other series. I've read the Percy Jackson series and the Kane Chronicles. But what I've noticed with those particular series, now that I've kind of read this series as well, is that Rick Riordan he starts off a little light and fluffy. You know, he starts off his series a little light and fluffy, really humorous and really kid-friendly. But by the time you finish the series, things are always darker and more serious. You know, that these kids in all of his series, the kids they're growing up. They're kind of being forced to grow up a little bit quicker because of the obstacles and the things that are thrown at them. But yeah, let's just talk about the series in general. I really liked all of these books, you guys. I really loved all the books. I think I rated all of them 4 stars a piece on Goodreads. Rick Riordan, he just has a way with telling mythology for a young audience. You know, he makes mythology fun and entertaining and easy to grasp and kind of, you know, handle in your head. Because if you know anything about mythology in general, every mythology is just very complex and confusing at times. You know, this person's related to that person. But I also appreciate that Rick Riordan, he doesn't overly kiddify things, you know what I mean? I mean, some of the characters may act immature or say stupid little silly things, you know, but at the end of the day, they're still kids, you know. Things aren't kiddified or overly kid-friendly, but he still treats them like they are kids at times, but he also treats them like they're adults, you know, considering the things that they are doing. You know, they're very mature children. So yeah, I've always appreciated that about Rick Riordan, how he treats his children characters, you know, that he treats them like they're kids, but then he also treats them like they're adults, you know. But overall, I did find that this series was very satisfactory, I think. The way it starts, the way the middle is, the way it ends, I think everything is pretty satisfactory. I do think it suffers a little bit from being pretty abrupt. By the end, I did feel like the ending was kind of abrupt, and I feel like, you know, you're with these characters, you've been with these characters for 5 books now, and I feel like some of them didn't really get the the page time that they deserved by the end of the series, and some of them were kind of brushed to the side a little bit. But still, I think overall, a very satisfactory series as a whole, a very satisfactory conclusion. I definitely found myself going, man, I really hope Rick Riordan returns to these characters at some point, you know, kind of spin some of them off. A particular character that I'm anxious to see more of is the character of Nico. If you've read Percy Jackson, Nico was introduced in the Percy Jackson series. He was kind of more of a supporting character in that. Nico does make an appearance. I don't think this is much of a spoiler to say this, but Nico does make an appearance. He doesn't make an appearance. He does appear. He pops up quite often in this series, and he plays a huge role in the final couple books of the series. Nico in particular is a character that I would love to see more of. I don't really want to say more than that, because yeah, there are just certain plot points that happen with him that I was like, wow, I can't believe Rick Riordan kind of introduced those themes in a children's book. You know, Rick Riordan, I kind of applaud him for kind of being a bit brave with where he took Nico's character and what he did with Nico's character. I really applaud him on that. But yeah, Nico, I want to see more of, you guys. I need more Nico in my life. I think there's definitely some potential there for a spin-off series kind of just focused on him, if to be quite honest. But yeah, you guys, I think that's kind of all I have to say about the Heroes of Olympus series. I mean, there's been so many reviews out there about just each book, about the series as a whole. There's probably really nothing more I can add. I just simply liked it. You know, I loved it. I enjoyed it. Very fun from start to finish. The characters are always the heart and core of any given Rick Riordan series, and that's what he excels at. You know, he excels at these really fascinating, beautiful characters. He excels at the great use of mythology and how he describes it and incorporates it into a modern setting. So, you guys, that is it for this review of the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. In the comments below, have you read the series? If you have read the series, feel free to talk about spoilers with me. I didn't have any spoilers in this video, but yeah, you can talk about them down below. I'm perfectly fine with that. So have you guys read the Heroes of Olympus series? Have you not read it? Do you plan on reading it? Yeah, what other mythologies would you like Rick Riordan to explore? There's so many out there. You know, he's only done a small sampling of what's out there, and I think there's so much more great potential out there for him to tell. But yeah, what other mythologies would you like to see him explore? Yeah, do you want some spin-offs of some of these characters from this series? Because I definitely need some more time with some of these people. But yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, I mean, like these other videos. Bye, guys.